we think that our bodies, sticking to our bodies, aren't supposed to change because that's what we see again in the media. So if we can see more representation of bodies changing, we will accept ourselves more.
You're listening to Parenting with Impact, a podcast for parents like you, raising complex kids to become capable, independent adults, even in this complicated world. Each episode brings expert insights and real-life strategies to help you parent with confidence, calm, and clarity. Here are your hosts, Elaine and Diane.
Welcome back, everybody, to another conversation in the Parenting with Impact podcast. My guest is Bridgett Brown, and we're going to be making all kinds of connections today. We're going to talk about beauty, but we're going to talk about body image, and then we're going to talk about perfectionism and how all those things interplay, and who knows what else is going to come out of this fabulous conversation. So, Bridgett, welcome.
Thank you. Welcome to me. Oh my God. Yeah, I told you it's Monday.
When you interview a fellow podcast host, she's as comfortable welcoming as she is being a guest. So,
Thank you.
So glad you're here.
So much for having me.
So tell us a little bit about, how did you get to be doing what you do that makes you a guest on the Parenting with Impact podcast?
Yeah. So I have a project, the Beyond Beauty Project, and I help preteens, teens, sorority girls, college kids, up to adults just navigate how to have a better self-image when it comes to their body image and just really embracing who they are in a very unique way and celebrating that.
Is it only for girls?
No, but I really focus on girls right now and women because I'm a woman and I have a daughter. But I just did a preteen workshop, and the moms, I get messages from moms all the time, and they really want this for the boys too. So I need to do that.
That's a potential.
It's for all of us, though. It's really all of us. Yeah, like what I do, it relates to every gender.
Right.
It's about embracing our unique selves and knowing that we're all so individual and that we're perfectly made and we're worthy just the way we are. So it's for all of us.
So how did you come to do this? Like you told me earlier, you have kind of a secret backstory that brought you here. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I started modeling when I was 19 professionally. And I was always a bit of a rebel in the industry where I was like, oh, they're telling me like I have to lose weight or be a certain way. But I did it for a long time because I was making a better life for myself. But along the way, I really started studying the mind, body, and spirit because I knew if I was going to have to be a certain weight or look like have a certain image, that I wanted to do it in a healthy way. And my mental health was getting triggered and destroyed sometimes in the process. So I really had to learn these other modalities. So I went on to model for a long time, and I had sort of this rock bottom moment where I lost my mom, my dad, my brother in under 2 years. And I went on to have a string of miscarriages. And
Wow.
yeah, and it was right after. So it was like boom, 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 boom. And, I had lived thank you. I had lived, the 20 kind of years prior working as a model and really being able to sort of control my body. And almost like an athlete, I would say. Like I knew it to a T and I could, And the last miscarriage I had was twins at 5.5 months. And I already had my daughter, which thank God, right?
Yeah.
But I was destroyed. I had lost my family. Now I lost my babies. I lost my body. My mental health was in the toilet. And I had went back to my agency after taking like a little bit of time to heal. And one of the first things they told me at 41 years old was, but first, you must lose weight.
Less. Yeah. You must lose weight.
And I just said,
you must put your body through more stress despite the stress it's already been through. Yes.
Yeah, like my body wasn't healing enough, right? And I just got off the phone and I cried. And I had this moment of like full body dysmorphia in the mirror. And my daughter ran in and she asked me what I was doing. And it was like, what am I doing? Like, what am I
What
doing?
am I doing?
What am I
Really?
doing? And,
Yeah.
I grew up with my mother having multiple sclerosis. So she was in a wheelchair by the time I was 5. And I always had this dream, like, I'm going to help us one day feel so confident in our skin, in our bodies. Like, I'm so lucky that I have an abled body, right?
Right.
I'm not going to lose weight and shove it into something that, and also I'm a 41-year-old woman. Why can't I be a size 6? Where's the
Right.
representation in the media? And, so I had a little daughter who was looking to me. I had a niece that was around 5 who was like, sort of thought I was the coolest thing ever,
Right.
at the time. And I just thought, no, I'm going to leave. And I was all set up. I was with a big agency in New York for a long time. And I was set and ready to go. And I walked away a couple days later and I started this
Wow.
project. And I didn't know exactly what it would turn out to be. And I love it. And I'm like super passionate about the work I do. But I just started a podcast. And then I put together these workshops that I offer. And then I started doing keynoting. And like, here I am.
There's so many different directions we could go. The people listening are parents and professionals who are supporting complex kids.
Yeah.
And with complex kids, there's lots of body dysmorphia. There's lots of, um, impulsivity. There's lots of
Yeah.
eating disorders. There's lots of challenges navigating our body and regulating ourselves and our bodies, right? There's
Yeah.
action, there's inaction, there's hyperactivity. Like there's so much around our bodies in
Yeah.
this brain-based condition. And what really strikes me when I hear your story, and I have a similar story about a miscarriage, a very late miscarriage, because that's a whole different thing when it happens that
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
was this ability to trust your body. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't know what your story was. You already had a child. For me, it was my first pregnancy. Um, but there was this story I had about my body and can I trust my body? I can't trust my body. It doesn't tell me what I need to know. I did everything I was supposed to do and still had a problem. Like,
Yeah.
will you talk a little bit about self-trust in the context of this work that you're doing?
Well, I love that you brought that up because that moment that I felt like I couldn't get back into like the size 4 jeans, right? That I said I almost had this like body I felt like I could control for 20 years. And all of a sudden I couldn't. And I really, really couldn't. My body wanted to heal so badly. Um, it was this moment of like full surrender. I
Mm,
had to say, first of all, I was having like postpartum. I was like, there was a lot of not good thoughts going on in my head. But
yeah,
I had to say to myself, one day at a time,
yeah,
little by little, I'm going to trust that I'm going to be okay. So when I started even my project, I just said, I'm healing along with everybody else. So I started really sharing all the kind of feelings that was going on around the miscarriages and stuff. But
right.
I had to trust that it happened the way it was supposed to happen.
Mhm. Yeah,
And that's hard. I was really mad for a really, really long time. I was mad at my body then too.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but I came around to.
What really strikes me is there's so many parallels in these when you're raising complex kids because it's oftentimes when parents first come into our community, they start with, I want it to be different. And it
Mm,
takes a while to get to the point where we invite them to see this is it. This is your journey. Your journey is to be with them on their journey. This is their journey. And as you say, to trust that things are happening the way it's supposed to, that we are the parents our kids need to have, and that we can learn how to be the parents our kids need us to be.
yeah. Well, and I think also I talk about this a lot. Like, we feel in society that things are supposed to be one way. And it's
Yes.
all around perfectionism, right?
Right.
And we're shown these images in media all the time of the perfect family and the perfect child and the perfect body and the perfect husband or wife or,
Yeah.
and that's what I really talk about in my workshops is that there's a whole world out there that's so beautiful and complex and different. And we're so bio individually different. And that's awesome. Like, if we can actually really embrace how cool it is that our brains work differently, but
Right.
and if we can keep expanding that message and say, I'm not going to fit into a box. I actually don't fit into a box. So, like, I have too many, like, I have the ADHD and the dyslexia and all this stuff. So I've never fit into the box, but I tried for a long time. Um, but I think really embracing how unique the world is. Like, I talk a lot about just body diversity too in my workshops. And I always show like a few of the images from the media. It started with the Victoria's Secret girls, and then Dove has done some great work in the body image space.
Yes, they have.
But I will say, and I love what they're doing, I'm like a big fan. But I will say that it's still not so diverse. There's older people and there's different genders and there's different abled bodies. And like, I think the more we can see it in the media, the more we can embrace it ourselves as
Yeah.
parents or as caretakers. And the more our children will say, I'm cool, like, just the way I am. I'm unique just the way I am.
Yeah.
Because I was born worthy. Then
Yeah.
society told me that I wasn't.
It's a concept right there. I was born worthy. Let's pause here. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Okay.
Hi, it's Elaine. And if you like this podcast, you'll love our coach approach. Whether you're a parent looking for support or a professional supporting families, we invite you to download a free guide with 12 key coaching tools at impactparents.com/gift. You can begin using a coach approach to help kids become more independent or improve all of your conversations at work and at home. That's impactparents.com/gift. Welcome back, everybody. My guest is Bridgett Brown, and she just let us through into the break with the most powerful term, which is I was born worthy. And, when you're raising complex kids, when you're supporting families with complex needs, part of what we forget to look at, I think, is the underlying messages that are making it harder for us to support our kids. The I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I'm bad. Um, all of these messages that kids can internalize really young and that we humans all take with us into adulthood on some level.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So, a lot of your work was to undo some of those foundational messages of
It, r-
worthiness.
Absolutely. It really is. Like, I always say, if you think about when a baby's born and you're holding that little baby or you see that little baby, I don't care what skin color they have, what abled body they have, what kind of brain they're going to have. You are like, they are so precious. They're worthy. And then they grow up and we have these messages. So, yeah, a lot of the work, I think, when raising, so I have a complex child myself. And I'm complex myself.
Right.
Uh, so I do understand firsthand some of the like sensitivities and the nuances that go into it. And I'll just share a little bit of my experience with my daughter is, we live in a very type A sort of keeping up with the Joneses area. And I had lived in New York City for a long time, it's very diverse and everybody's like very accepting. And then I moved to this little sort of lovely, but more cookie cutter neighborhood. And that's sort of when we discovered like, oh, she has dyslexia. Oh, she has ADHD. Oh, she has dyscalculia. Oh, she has to go to a special school. And it just kept, I
Yeah.
have ADHD too. So I had to kind of walk my talk and say, she's so perfect the way she is. And in a way, I'm going to share this just in case this is helpful for anybody. It almost took the pressure off of me
Right?
because
Yes.
we can't keep up anyways.
No.
So we have to do things. And this is what I talk about too a lot, whether I'm doing a keynote or a workshop. It's like, what do you want? What
Hmm.
do you need? What works for you? Um, like that's what we have to be like guiding ourselves all the time because we live in a perfectionist society and we trigger yes all the time. And
Yeah.
before we know it, we're putting pressure even on our children that fuels the like, I'm not good enough or I'm bad or because we've just been, I hate to say it, but like brainwashed,
Conditioned.
conditioned.
Yeah. Now we have been conditioned.
To like have certain images and wear the masks and like we got to take it all off and just really, really feel confident in ourselves and the way we are. And I think that just
Which
takes
is,
practice.
I was going to say, which is not easy to do. It's something we have to
Nope.
practice. We have to decide to do it and then practice at it. I have a question for you because what strikes me about your story is you said you grew up with a mom with MS in a wheelchair, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And we have lots of parents in this community who are, there's this constant story that the parents have of I'm not enough and I'm not doing enough and I can't, like every moment I have needs to be focused on my kid, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I'm wondering what the gift was to you of having a mother who was differently abled.
Yeah. I think that I think I learned a lot of compassion early on and a lot of resilience. Like I had to really figure things out for myself and I was, pushing her wheelchair at 7 years old and navigating things that maybe, a 7-year-old normally doesn't. I think the gift as I got older and I really processed what really happened to my like psyche and, is I got this really first hand, experience into how losing her body image affected her mental health.
Mm,
And that's just given me, I think, really good insight into the work that I'm doing because my mom was very tall and beautiful and she had a beautiful body. And as she lost her body, it really affected her, self-esteem and her mental health.
and
And
by that, it's almost like her self concept.
yeah, because I think like we as women specifically, we can our appearance can be so important to us that when we lose it,
Yeah.
it's tough. So making everything else more important than that, I think is really important. Um, so yeah.
I want to say it's interesting because I'm hitting in that next stage of my life. And this is something I've been dealing with personally for the last year as I move through menopause.
Mhm.
This like shift, I didn't do anything different, but my body's changing anyway. Like
Yeah.
finding a peace with that has been more difficult than I expected it to be.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. It is. That's why I always like to say bodies change because bodies are supposed to change, but we
Right?
don't see that in the media, So really trying, and it doesn't happen. It's not going to just happen by saying, I'm going to accept my
No.
body. It's really this intention first and then the practice of it.
Right.
Um, but
Well, and the other thing that really jumps at me is that just when we think we've kind of come to terms with it, it changes again. And so much like parenting complex kids, where you think you got it, I got this, I figured out my kids got whatever, I can handle this. Then their peers hit another milestone that they're not hitting, and it slaps you in the face again. And then
yeah.
you got to come to terms with it again because now you're at a different place and now you've got another layer.
Hmm.
And I suspect it's very much like that with our bodies as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. we're all part of nature and we're
Mm.
really flowing and we're changing. And it's this sort of lie that we've been told that things are supposed to be a certain way and go like this and uh and not be different or not change. So I think it's embracing that. But we think that our bodies, sticking to our bodies, aren't supposed to change because that's what we see again in the media. So if we can see more representation of bodies changing, we will accept ourselves more.
So talk a little bit about representation, like as we're looking at the lens, whether it's about our kids looking at the world and saying, this is what my body should be, this is what my brain should be. I mean, I think about,
Mhm.
you know, the unbelievable gift that Simone Biles gave girls to say, take care of your mental health first,
Yes.
right? Talk a little bit about representation a little bit deeper, because I think it's so important and it's so hard for us because we don't have the control over it, right?
I know, yeah. But we have to keep talking about it so we sort of are putting the message out there, the demand a little bit that we want to see ourselves. Why I think it's so important is because if you're a little kid, let's say, and you never see yourself in the media, you never see your body size, you never see your skin color, or maybe you only see it sometimes, or when you do see it, maybe they're the house cleaner or they're the janitor or they're not the doctor. It's like subtle messages that make you feel you're not good enough. Where am I? Like I don't see myself. So I think it's almost like that mirror work. Like it's very important to be able to say, "Oh, somebody else, they kind of look like me." Like yeah, there I am. Because if you never see yourself, you don't feel like you belong, I think, in the world.
Well, and what's really jumping at me as I'm listening to you is that, your work is around that some of it is around that external piece of, do you see people who look like you? And I'm realizing that our work is very much is around identifying the people who think like me. Like I'm not the only
Hmm.
one who thinks this way, whose
Yeah.
brain works this way.
Hmm.
And it's all combined, right?
I love talking about like our brains now that I'm digging in with my daughter and my own brain. But my team, I think most of us have ADHD and we just like talk about it openly. And I'll just be like, my brain's not really working like
Today, yeah.
how it was yesterday. And they're like, got you. And, because
Yeah.
it's also like my brain isn't perfect. So it's like, what is really my ADHD and what is just the perfectionism that I've put on the way my brain's supposed to work? I remember I
Yes.
went to my therapist. This was a couple months ago. I'm like, I don't know. My mental health, like it's just not like it was a month ago. And she just looked at me and she goes, "So your
Mm.
mental health's not perfect right now?" She's like, "I don't know if you should be so happy this week. Like you had a tough week." And I was like, "Got yes. Yep, okay. You got me."
I love that, and I have a child in particular I look forward to sharing that with, so thank you.
Yeah.
Bridget, let me tell people what I've learned, how people can find out more about you. You can find Bridget at the project is called Beyond Beauty Project. So you can find them on Instagram. I think it's beyond.beauty.project. You can find them at beyondbeautyproject.com. She does workshops, keynotes, schools, corporations. She has a podcast, Beyond Beauty Project. So if you want to find out more, if you've got a preteen or older girl you want to support more consciously around this because, as you say, and as we say, first you got to set the intention, then you got to practice, right? So
Absolutely.
you can find out more about Bridget and all of these wonderful places at Beyond Beauty Project. So,
Mhm.
so as we
Absolutely.
begin to wrap up this conversation, what have we not talked about that you want to bring up, or is there something else we've talked about that you want to kind of hone in on? How do you want to end your part of this conversation?
Yeah, I feel like you said something about parents, putting a lot of pressure on themselves. They're not doing it all. They're not, it's usually doing it all or doing it the way they want to. And I would say to give ourselves grace and to know that we're also not perfect and there's no perfect way to parent. Um, yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's just going little by little.
Yeah. The thing that got me through when my kids were younger and I was really struggling was I used to have a necklace. Have a necklace that I used to wear every day for a dozen years. And the Hebrew is Gamze Ya'avor, and the
Mm,
English means this too shall pass.
yeah.
And it really got me through everything, the good times, but the bad times, that like it was that reminder, one step at a time, this moment is just this moment.
Yeah.
That can be so powerful to help.
Yeah. It's like sometimes we take baby steps instead of, milestones or big steps. It's like just a little step, one foot in front of the other.
Yeah. I often ask as parents, or one of the things we teach with parents is taking aim. And often parents are trying to take aim on way big things or way too much. And
Mhm.
so sometimes I ask, what's the next step?
Mm,
Right? We don't have to have the whole thing solved. We just have to figure out
mhm.
what the next step is, where that next footing is going to go.
It's also, just from my experience, it's hard sometimes. Like life's
Yeah.
hard sometimes and it's hard raising complex kids and often we're complex raising complex kids. And
Yep.
so I try to give myself a hug. Like I tried to welcome myself in the beginning, but like sometimes I just have to say like it's okay. Like you're doing an okay job.
Yeah. Probably better than okay. If you're listening to this, chances are
And
it's better than okay.
absolutely, I agree.
Awesome. Well, Bridgett, thank you. Thanks for what you're doing. Um, and thanks for bringing it to this community. You have a beautiful, joyful, positive message, and I'm happy to share it.
Thank you so much for having me.
To those of you listening, what did you take away from this conversation that you want to bring forward with you into your week? What's your insight? What's your aha? What was that one gem that you want to bring forward with you? For me, it was, oh, your mental health isn't perfect right now, which I think is really powerful. But what is it for you that you want to bring forward with you? Um, Next episode, Diane and are going to be talking about not exactly sure what, but it's going to be the two of us. And it's going to be something hot and happening in the community or issues that we hear parents raising in recent weeks. So join us for that and click below, keep going. And until then, as always, folks, thanks for what you're doing for yourself and for your kids. You make an extraordinary difference. Take care, everybody.
You've been listening to the Parenting with Impact podcast with Elaine and Diane. For more information on the Impact Parents community or to join Sanity School for Parents, please visit impactparents.com. If you like what you've heard, please share this podcast with friends who need similar guidance and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.